I'm going to keep it somewhat realistic. I think that Caleb Williams is still going to be the first overall pick. That would be my choice here. I think that is the ideal scenario. But, if any of these other teams have shots at quarterbacks, whether it's in trading up or things like that, we're going to discuss those scenarios. But I do think that the perfect spot for Chicago, or the perfect pick for Chicago, is still Caleb Williams. And it's easy for the team at the very top of the draft to pinpoint exactly what a best case scenario would be, because they, fully control it. So I think some people would say, no. Best case scenario is trading back, getting 3 first round picks, again, like just a bunch of first round picks again, moving back, building around Justin Fields, having like the greatest team that you possibly can. But look, we saw it this past Super Bowl. You've got to go get a quarterback who can be a top 5 quarterback in the league, or it doesn't matter. And look, I know the 49ers were right there. They were close. I think that Brock Purdy played fine. You look at the team around him, it's just a team full of studs. That roster in the salary cap era is so good for the 49ers. They got one of the best play callers in Kyle Shanahan, and they ended up not being able to capture the Super Bowl because they were going up against not just a top 5 quarterback, but the number 1 quarterback. And so if you don't have a quarterback who can at least be in the same realm or conversation as somebody like that, it doesn't really matter how good the rest of the team is. I know it's a team sport, but that's just the fact of the matter, and how good and important the quarterback position is. So all that to say, best case scenario for the Bears is you draft Caleb Williams, and then he becomes your franchise quarterback because you get the rookie contract flexibility, and I think he's got the potential to obviously be in that top 5 conversation. So that to me is the best case scenario.
So I completely agree on Caleb Williams. And I think you're going to hear more of what you just said. We just saw the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, so you have to try to chase them and chase greatness and everything. And I don't even think that the Chiefs winning Super Bowls has changed that. I think this has been the league for the last 30 or 40 years. The quarterback is the biggest driver. And I think a lot of times when we talk analysis here, we do think about the high end outcome of the draft pick, right? And chasing potential greatness. And I think teams have to do that. And I do think Caleb Williams has all those tools and all that ability to be the greatest of this draft class. One thing I want to bring up, though, I've seen people do research or show research on, say, the number 1 overall pick versus pick 2 or beyond. And the number 1 overall pick is generally the better player, I would say. But I think that like those scenarios should almost be split into 2. I think there's years where there is literally a consensus number 1 overall pick, right? The Andrew Luck year. Everybody knew it was going to be Andrew Luck. Everybody knew it was going to be Kyler Murray. Everybody knew it was going to be Joe Burrow in the years that they came out. Then there's a year like last year where I think most people still had Bryce Young, but there was more debate. And of course, CJ Stroud through 1 year looks better. There's other years, like Alex Smith was not a consensus number 1 overall pick. He just happened to be the guy at number 1 overall. Where do you think this one lands? I think Caleb Williams has been that consensus number 1 overall, but now there's so many more voices in the space.
Yeah.
And if you want to find it, there'll be plenty of people that don't have Caleb Williams as their number 1 because there's so many people talking about these things.
Yeah, to me, with Caleb Williams, what it comes down to is a big part of this process that we don't get as much of an eye or an ear for, and that is, figuring out who he is as a person, right? I think there's been all sorts of rumors that have been flown around there, I think, over the last year about Caleb Williams' character. And to me, those have just been rumors, because I've, talked with people who are around or close to the programs, both at Oklahoma and at USC, who love the kid, who think he's fantastic. And so it's like, man, where this, he wants equity in the team, or he's going to walk, or, he's for sure going to say no to Chicago. He's good. That to me has just been more rumors than anything else. So, I
think they're literally made up stories. I think some of those stories
I think so too.
Completely fabricated.
It feels like they are, and that's why the side in which I have more tangible, credible sources are the ones that say, no, he's a great dude. He's a hard worker. He's a competitor. He wants to win. He wants to be the best. Like all that. I've heard more tangible stuff there than I have the other stuff, which gets the major headlines because it's more negative. But I agree with you. I feel like those might not even be a game of telephone. Those might be just completely made up. Anyways, As long as you interview Caleb Williams and you come away with the conclusion that, man, this dude wants to be great. He wants to be one of the greatest of all time. He has the talent level to at least entertain that conversation. There's a long way before you get to that point, but he has the talent to at least get into that conversation of a projection to potentially be a top 5 quarterback in this league, which is what is required to win a Super Bowl. So for me, I like Jaden Daniels. I like Drake May, but it's pretty clear that Caleb Williams is QB1 for me.
Bears are back up at 9. So when we're talking Bears, it's going to be like, hey, number 1, we gave them Caleb Williams. What's the best pairing for the Bears to move the needle here at 9?
To me, it's Malik Neighbors. Like, I think Malik Neighbors is their best case scenario at 9, and I think it's somewhat realistic. All 3 of these wide receivers are really talented and could all be picked in the top 5. Like, you can make debates for any of them at 4, or at 5, or at 7. But I do think that Marvin Harrison's going to go off the board first. And then it really is sort of a team preference coin flip with one of these other 2 guys. And you're starting to bring offensive linemen into play. You're starting to bring maybe pass rusher into play, corner. I know a lot of people are very high on like a guy like Terrion Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell. So it's realistic to think that one of those top 3 wide receivers can make it to 9. But I feel like whoever it is, their floor is 9. And whether it's a Dunze or Neighbors, I don't think Harrison Jr. would get to 9. There's just no way. One of those guys is going to get drafted by the Bears at number 9, I think. So to me, the best case scenario is Malik still being on the board, pairing him with DJ Moore and then Caleb Williams at the top, you would hope.
One of my questions here is because we've only, I feel like I'm going to repeat this every time there's a mock draft, every time we talk about the top 10. We're only talking offense. That's it this year. We're only talking about offensive players. And as much as I want to say it's an offensive-driven game, all that's true. Will the NFL differ? Like the PFF draft board, you mentioned Cooper DeJean as a blue chip. He's number 8 right now on the current draft board.
Mm-hmm.
Drazon Newton at 10, the defensive tackle out of Illinois. But in the top 15, top 13, there's only 3 defensive players. Top 12 is all offensive players except for 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all the guys that we've been talking about. Is there a chance that the NFL is going to be higher on some of the edge defenders, some of the corners? Are we going to see more defensive players come draft night? And so 2 things there. Are we just too high on the offensive players? Or is like Malik Neighbors at 9, like, of course he's going to be there because there'll be a Dallas Turner, there'll be a Latu, there'll be a Cooper DeJean. There'll be some of these defensive players sprinkled into the top 10 because we're just so offensive minded right now, I think, in maybe the draft community.
If we're off, I don't think we're off by much. I've got a big board update that's coming later this weekend. So some of those names that are within the top 15 are going to change a little bit. But when I think of guys that can threaten the top 10 from the defense side of the ball, I think of Terrion Arnold, the corner from Alabama. I think of Byron Murphy II, the defensive tackle from Texas. I think of Jared Verse because of how powerful he is. And again, how the NFL is not going to worry about power when it comes to Jared Verse. I think he could be an option there. I wonder if Dallas Turner could also be in that conversation. And then Quinyon Mitchell, for as good of a Senior Bowl as he had, I think we heard the buzz that he's going to make a run at that CB1 crown. So if I put Terrion Arnold in there, I think I also have to put Quinyon Mitchell in there. So to me, it's those 4 players that have a shot. But I don't think any of them are getting picked before the top 5. Some people have the Chargers like thinking about corner because corner is a major need for them. But when you look at both the potential offensive line and wide receiver needs for that team, it makes it really difficult for me to even think that they're going to take a corner at number 5. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Tennessee's going to go offense. I think the Giants are going to go offense. Falcons, you could see a pick on defense. I think that's where that comes into play. Chicago, okay, could as well. Jets, I don't see a defensive pick. And so it's like you've got 3 teams in the top 10 right now who maybe, I think they could entertain defense, but you know that not all 3 of them aren't going to go defense because if a couple of them end up going on defense, that means some good offensive players are moving down the board as well. So I think the maximum amount of defensive players that we're going to get in the top 10 this year is 2. think that's the max. So I don't think we're that far off if we're far off
Yeah.
with our
And
offense.
I'm not saying you're not unique here. I mean, this is, look at Dane Brugler's breakdown, look at any other draft analyst. We're all talking offensive players in the top 10. It's just the nature of the draft. I'm just interested to see if the NFL is a little different. Bottom line for me, I think with the Bears though, is I want offensive players. I mean,
Oh yeah,
their defense played better down the stretch. I still think they have a lot of room to improve on that side of the ball, but I want Caleb Williams and a weapon, and add that to DJ Moore, add that to Cole Kmet, what they have there. I want that other receiver. So I'm with you on Malik Neighbors as the best case scenario for the Bears. Give me the QB wide receiver combination, and I'm happy if I'm a Bears fan.